want to deal with the fact of you as a decision maker. See, what I've been presenting till now is a recognition of a world that has conflicting ideas, perceptions, concepts, different perspectives, and the fact that what happens in halacha is not the presentation of what I've been talking about is not the presentation of a definite conclusion like the halacha is, and it's been this way since Har Sinai, and this is the halacha. The halacha consists of a lot of different concepts, ideas, and so forth and so forth, and there's a need to understand how the halachic theory applies in a specific situation, and that involves decision making, right? And that will also create, once you have decision making and ideas, you also are going to live with the idea that there are differing viewpoints, right? Like what I just said before about brachas, there's one viewpoint that the bracha can be extended for a long time, for a long period. Other people say no, the bracha can't be extended that long. Things like that. But the point is you have differing viewpoints and so forth. Whenever there's a reality of different viewpoints, it's because there is a recognition that there are ideas out there, and human beings have to make decisions based upon those ideas and come to conclusions. Now, the fact is that the question emerges, so who should make that decision? So when you start talking in terms of godelim or in terms of rabbanim or stuff like that, what you're basically saying is that you need a certain amount of education, a certain amount of knowledge to make a decision. And what you're saying is that individuals with this knowledge are the people who should make that decision. So the truth is when you look at people who are very adamant, let's say, about following godelim, in a broad way you can divide them into two categories. There's one category which gives some type of mystical power to the godel. This is much more of a Hasidish attitude, that the Rebbe has some type of Ruach HaKodesh, some type of knowledge, it's not even knowledge, it's some type of connection to Kodesh Baruch Hu that he can state with accuracy what God wants. So the point is, when you have a person following a Rebbe, a lot of times what they're saying is it's not that the Rebbe is an intellectual giant and knows the answers and so forth and so forth based upon intellectual processes.
But isn't that what a godel should be?
So that's a different definition. That's why I'm saying there's two definitions. One type of definition is a certain idea where they have some kind of connection, some kind of line to a Kodesh Baruch Hu, that you get an answer from them, and what they're telling you.
It doesn't negate it.
What?
It doesn't negate it. You can have a Rebbe who's a...
Yeah. I'm not. It's not. The two positions I'm going to explain are not at the exclusion of each other.
Right.
But the fact is what I'm trying to say is that we're looking at what you would call the authority model of Jewish decision making, where an individual is presenting as having the ability to state what is proper. Okay, in other words, what I'm presenting is one model where what do you know? Supposed to know what to do, what's right or wrong. So you basically hear what's from right and wrong from this individual, and this individual. How does this individual know what's right and wrong. So if you argue something of Ruach HaKodesh, if you argue some type of God-based knowledge, what you're saying is this individual has some type of connection in line to God, and that this individual in telling you what to do is basically speaking for God. Okay, I'm not trying to define this individual as Moshe Rabbeinu or so forth, but it's much more of an emphatic statement. So the point is there's no real decision-making, intellectual decision-making in the process. It's basically that you know right from wrong. It's God tells you through this individual. That's one viewpoint. Okay, that's much more of a Hasidic viewpoint and so forth.
Right. There's
another viewpoint which basically says that there is a decision to be made. Okay, in other words, what's presented to you through Torah is this tremendous body of complex knowledge and ideas and so forth and so forth. And someone has to make a decision of right and wrong. That's called psak. Okay? And that definition of the question arises, who can make such a decision? So the point is that the authoritarian model says that the person who should make that decision is the person with the most knowledge or the best analytical skills and so forth and so forth. In other words, it becomes that's the position of the godel. It's not that he has a mystical connection to God, it's because he's been recognized as the expert. He has shown his intellectual capabilities in making decisions. So that's one viewpoint. Okay, now within that viewpoint, okay, then comes the issue. So the argument develops as you listen to and that's where the argument develops. You have to listen to a godel, because the godel is the one who is mostly who's the best possible person to make that decision. Okay. Now, the fact is there's some merit to that argument. Okay? There's clear-cut merit to that argument. The question that exists, though, is the recognition that it's still a decision. The difference between these two authoritarian models is that in the Ruach HaKodesh model, you can't ask a question whether the godel could possibly make a mistake. What are you talking about? He's basically a conduit for God to tell you what to do. He's not. In other words, he's not making the decision. He's basically telling you what is right and wrong through his connection to God and as a voice of God.
I mean, he still has his own kind of.
Well, that's when you start getting into.
Moshe was wrong.
What?
Moshe was wrong.
But the fact is, yes, he still had to make decisions, so forth and so forth. But the fact is that the perception is that it's not really his decision. He's just presenting what's right and wrong. Not
it's like a really good lawyer.
No. This model is not a really good lawyer. This model is basically saying this person is the. We're going to say is the mouthpiece. If you want to say that's what we mean by lawyer. But the other viewpoint is that it's just that he is the expert in making this decision. But it's not that he is. But he can still be wrong. In other words, he's still even the greatest genius of Albert Einstein. You know, a lot of people argued everyone said, listen, but he's still. People felt he made a mistake in his like, for example, Albert Einstein had real problems with accepting the Bohr-Rutherford definition of the atom. He just couldn't accept the fact that there was certain chaos in the atom.
He had a problem with the whole the quantum physics.
Right. That was it. So the truth of the matter is even a genius like Albert Einstein could still be wrong.
Look, Gemara has an interesting Torah about that, and it basically says that like the tzaddik / Rebbe, I mean, assuming that tzaddik is the Rebbe, has the ability, like Hashem makes a din, the tzaddik finds out about it, they argue it out, and then you bring his musar to the people in order to help.
But the Kuti Maharan is working within the first definition.
Right.
Okay? Rav Moshe, for example, in Rav Moshe's statement, if you look at the Hagdama to Rav Moshe, Rav Moshe says, don't accept my psak because I say it. Okay? He basically says, look it through, learn it through yourself, and see if you agree with me. And if you happen to have questions on me, let me know. Okay? Because maybe I could be wrong. It's a very different perspective. Now, the fact is that's why it's important to understand these two perspectives. Okay? The fact is one is much more much more difficult. In other words, the authority is not going to be questioned as much. The question is that when you're dealing with, let's say, a psak from Rav Moshe, it's not that his difference is he's a greater genius than me, he knows the material genius better than me, and so forth and so forth. But I may still have a question. I may still have an issue. That's a different attitude in terms of how you deal with authority, and issues come up with authority. That's in that idea. Now you still might end up in saying I have a bunch of questions, but listen, I'm not going to be chelek with Rav Moshe because listen, I'm not smart. Can't deal with it. And so I'm not going to deal. Like bad situations where I had an idea and I said to him, listen, I had this idea this way. I'm nahig in my own life, but the truth is, I know it's connected to Rav Moshe. Rav Moshe doesn't say this thing. It's a different psak. And I had my reasons why I followed what I did. I had other people I relied upon, and so forth and so forth. But someone said Rav Moshe held the same thing. I said, no, Rav Moshe doesn't hold that. So then I said to the person said to me, in the end, so what should I do? Should I follow your psak, or should I do what Rav Moshe does? I said, let me understand this. You have a choice. Rav Moshe Feinstein, right, says A, right? Rabbi Ben Hecht says B, right? Rav Moshe Feinstein, Rabbi Ben Hecht. What do you think you should be doing? Right? So the person said, "You're right. I should follow Rav Moshe." I said, "Absolutely. I have my own reasons why I don't, but the fact is that when you look at it from your viewpoint, you have Rav Moshe versus this. I mean, there's a reason why you're following Rav Moshe."
Is there also an idea that great Rabbanim also,
right,
kind of, they had a certain perspective when they were making their din?
Yeah, I mean that also is okay. So now you're getting into another perspective. Then the question arises is how do you deal with a psak from a godel? Maybe he's doing it in a specific situation and so forth and so forth. That becomes an issue when how do you relate the psak to the specific situation and so forth. That takes further analysis. Now, there's another viewpoint that basically says that at some point in time, psak should be in the hands, should be local. In other words, it's the local rabbi who should consult the ideas of the godel, but the local rabbi is the one who should make the decision. There's a famous story. It's sort of said over by Rabbi Lamb. Rabbi Lamb had a really big shiloh once, and he didn't know what to do, and so he wanted to talk over with his Rebbe, Rabbi Soloveitchik, right, the Rav. And he said, well, the Rav, let's talk. So the Rav said, okay, let's go through the sugya. Okay, so the Rav talked and learning with Rabbi Lamb about the issues involved in this shiloh and stuff like that, and they spent a good amount learning and so forth and so forth. And the Rav basically said in the end, okay, you know what you're talking about. And he basically said, yeah, you know the sugya. Okay, good. So then, and the Rav was ready to leave. So Rabbi Lamb says, but Rebbe, what should I do? So the Rav said, you're a rabbi, paskin. Okay, in other words, the Rav was basically saying, Rabbi Lamb was saying, hey, you're the godel, paskin. And the Rav turned it around and said, you're the Rav, you paskin. In other words, what the Rav wanted to do is make sure that Rabbi Lamb had enough information and enough knowledge of the issue to be able to give a competent psak. But in the end, he felt it was Rabbi Lamb who had to give the psak. That's the view of the Rav. There's a view of other Rabbanim that psak should really be local. It shouldn't be on the national scale. And that's one of the tensions between whether you go to a godel or whether you don't go to a godel. In other words, the godel should be consulted knowledge, but who really should make the decision? That's for the issues. But the fact is what I'm getting to, though, going right back to the original idea. What I'm getting to is the decision that's rendered. Even if you understand the decision comes from the godel, is it the Hasidic model is very much that the godel or the Rebbe has some type of special status to be able to render a decision. It's not even a decision. He is expressing God's will through some mystical knowledge. The perception of the Misnagdim, which you basically pointing out, which is that the godel is the genius. It's a universal genius. He has identified himself as one of the top 10 in the world in the subject, and therefore, this is why he is the person who renders the decision. But the decision is still a decision. Okay? It's not some mystical idea. It's based upon his knowledge and his ideas and so forth and so forth. And like any human being, he can be wrong. And not only that,
he has to be
right,
at a certain level to
right,
conduct the
right.
role. So there's
so here it's not just a political appointment that makes him president. It's the fact that he has established himself as being the expert in the field. He's identified himself as knowing his stuff, and therefore he makes the decision. But at the same point in time, the decision is still a decision. It still has to meet. It's still meeting the criteria of any type of decision, given the facts, given the perspective, and so on and so forth. It raises further questions. Was his decision stated in this situation? Is it going to be the same decision in another situation? So even if the godel is saying A in this situation, right? You look at him and say, yeah, I know he said A in that situation, but I don't know. Is that A is still supposed to apply in my situation or in another situation? Maybe there's a distinction. So what comes out of all this is the fact that it's still in the realm of decision making. But what usually limits people in terms of this decision making is the fact that decision making is in the hands of the genius. So what happens in the world is that you basically are moving towards godelim making the decisions. This godel made and so forth and so forth. And people basically saying, and I just listen to the godel, whatever. What I'm pointing out, though, or what I want to point out, is when you start seeing this aspect that it's all involved in decisions, and decisions also, a decision in one particular situation cannot necessarily be brought over to another particular situation, then you begin to understand that you are a decision maker in this realm. Especially if you see different people being gedolim, because even on the level of gedolim, which godel do you choose? Now, a lot of people like to perceive the fact that there's only one set of gedolim, and when anyone is presented from a different perspective as a godel, they immediately are challenged. Oh, he's not really a godel, and therefore what you're left with is a very select bunch of individuals who all basically hold the same opinion, being gedolim. And the fact is that you limit the fact that there may be other people who really should be looked upon with that type of knowledge. And the reason that's done is because what you're really trying to do is remove decision making from the individual. Because once you perceive there to be 10 different experts who may all have different perspectives, then you become a decision maker in choosing which expert you're going to follow. Okay? And the truth is that comes down to the starting point, that who you're going to listen to, and that starts with even your basic education. Who are you going to study with? Who are you going to ask your questions to? Okay? It's very interesting because in understanding that, all of Torah thought really begins, all of Torah study, all of Torah analysis really begins with an individual's decision. And what's the individual's original decision in the process of Torah? So there's 2 times in Pirkei Avos, in the first parak, that you find the terms Aseh Lecha Rav. Okay? To make for yourself a Rav. Okay? And the first thing that hits you is, in both cases, it says the exact same language. Aseh Lecha Rav. Which implies that it's going to be a personal decision. Okay? No one can tell you who's going to be Rav. I mean, your parents can send you to school, this is your Rav right now, but the bottom line is, at some point in time, you're going to be choosing what you want as a Rav. And the fact is that it's mentioned twice in Pirkei Avos, in the first chapter. Okay, in
the first one.
No, in the first chapter, in Mishnah, I think it's...
Is it the first line?
No, it's in Mishnah... it's in Mishnah Vav, okay? It's Yeshua ben Prachia v'nata herbali kibu mihem. Yeshua ben Prachia and Nata herbali were zugos. They were zugos, and they accepted from... They took from Yosef ben Yoz and Yosef ben Yochanan, I believe. Yeah, right. And then he says, Yeshua ben Prachia says, Amar Aseh Lecha Rav, to make for yourself a Rav. Okay, you're a Rav. Okay, so forth. So that's one time you find Aseh Lecha Rav. And the second time you find Aseh Lecha Rav is in the second last mission, I believe. Yeah. It's Rabbi Gamliel says, it's the mission of Tez Zion. What?
So this stuff was the
first paragraph of Pirkei Avos.
This was the extra added one, right?
No, this is the first paragraph of Pirkei Avos.
Oh, so the first paragraph.
Right. The mission of Tez
Zion?
Tez Zion. Rabbi Gamliel Omer.
Yeah, Aseh
Lecha Rav. Okay? Now the fact is both statements are Aseh Lecha Rav. It's saying you should make for yourself this individual as a Rav. And the way the Meforshim look at it is there's two functions of a Rav. What are the 2 functions of a rabbi? One function of a rabbi is as his teacher. Okay? The other function of a rabbi is as posek. Okay? So the fact is, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the same person. But the fact is you have to make the decision of who you're going to study from, and you have to make the decision of who you are going to ask your shilas to.
And you can have that for different...
Pardon?
They have to be the same person?
No,
they don't.
It doesn't necessarily have to be the same person.
Do they have to have the same mindset?
What? It won't say work that they have to have some kind of same mindset, but the fact is that most likely it could be the same person, but the fact is that it doesn't necessarily have to be the same person because there's 2 different talents.
Right, it also depends what you learn.
Well, okay, so the fact is then it gets into issues of Aseh Lecha Rav. Does that mean you have one person, I'm going to learn Yeridea from him, I'm going to learn Eben Ezer from him, so that's another issue of how you learn. And then there's the issue where you're going to ask your shalas in this to this person, you're going to ask your shalas in that to that person. It doesn't necessarily mean that, from what I've seen, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's always going to be the same person who has the same shalas, because one person may be an expert in this, one person an expert in that. But it does state, especially in terms of learning, that there should be one person should be the conductor. Let's put it like the conductor. Now, Aseh Lecha Rav, for sure the Meforshim talk about this in Aseh Lecha Rav, make for yourself a Rav. It says, now there's actually another Gemara that says that if you only study from one person, if you only study from one derech or one person, you really won't have great bracha in your learning. So there's a Gemara that seems to imply that that there is a value in getting different perspectives. But the point is that, and then the question really, but it says over here, get one Rav. And then there's another one that says, well, get different perspectives. So the Meforshim deal with that and say that there's a benefit in different perspectives, but you need that anchor. You need that one person who is going to sort of give you a direction in taking care of all of the variant materials. Now, what's being pointed out by this, the way I understand it, is the Lecha Rav, is you're really being pointed out about the importance of you as a decision maker. Okay? This is not a dogmatic system. This is not the point where you're going to hear point blank, this is right, this is wrong, and so forth and so forth. Once you have a Lecha Rav, it comes to be that you're making a decision of who you're going to learn from. That involves that you are a decision maker. And there's not just one methodology of learning. Okay, there's not just one understanding of Torah.
But there's also the aspect of you can look up sources from like a Sfarim that you have, you know, like any specific basic halacha that you have, and then find it right there and research it and got it. But then there's other aspects that would seem to be on a more personal level that becomes very difficult to just ask anybody that, because the rabbi or rab or whatever, they're very different. So level and place.
The fact is
very different.
You're correct, but what you're also identifying, first of all, there's an unfortunate say by Lecha Rav, it's like make for yourself a Rav. It means you should learn enough to be your own Rav. There's some people who understand it that way, but that's what's really coming out to is to get to that point, you need a guide. See, what you're dealing with is the complexity of the knowledge, the complexity of the information, the complexity of the system. If you think Judaism is pretty black and white, then there's no complexity. Do this, don't do this, do that, that's it, it's fine, right? Okay? You do this. Oh, that person really doesn't do it.
Well,
they have a kula.
Things you can take care of that you can find.
You can't. In a lot of ways, it's not so simple. The point is, well, no. What I'm saying on any issue, the fact is that people think that there's this. It's like this is the halacha. That person doesn't do it. Well, they have a kula, but that's because they're shvach. They're not doing it. Like, and I've said this before. It's like there's certain situations that if you think a person is acting a certain way because they're just being made and so forth, and you understand that that person is making a decision of how to behave. That person is understanding that this is proper. This is what is proper. Like a lot of people think, like in terms of chumras, in terms of a lot of things, that this is what's proper, that's what's proper. They understand that there's a like I'm trying to think of a good example.
Close down.
Yeah, you know, the point is, what I want to think is a good example where
3 hours, 6 hours.
No.
You
told us that machloket exists because it prompts people to learn more.
Right. But there's also, like for example, the story goes that Rav Lichtenstein went to Rav Lichtenstein was a big baseball fan, right? And when he went to what?
Yankees fan?
Yes, he was a big Yankees fan.
A lot of people have that affliction.
Okay. And when he made Aliyah, supposedly the Rav got someone to cut out the box scores from the New York Times so the Rav could send it to Rav Aron. Okay, whatever. Now, there's another story, I think it's by Pinchas Scheinberg, where Pinchas Scheinberg was walking by, I think he was in New York, he was walking by a radio, and he heard, a Yankee score, and he smiled, and a person looked at him and said, "Oh, the Rav is a Yankees fan." He says, "No, I'm smiling because for the first time in my life, I heard a baseball score right? The Yankees. I didn't care. Okay, I was really happy. It no longer had any effect on me. So the truth is you had Rav Aron Lichtenstein, who really had some kind of connection to baseball, and then he had Rav Scheinberg. I think it was Rav Scheinberg, who was happy when he didn't have any connection to baseball. And the fact is that when you're talking about his different personalities, you're talking. Now the truth is that looking at Rav Aron made a statement that I just read, like. He made a statement about some guys who were extremists. I forget exactly what the situation was, but they were extremists. And he sort of said, a person who learned Hamlet, who read Hamlet, could never have acted that way. Like he made a comment to the extent that if you ever studied Hamlet and understood questioning and understood doubt from Hamlet, like the be or not to be, what do I do, and so forth and so forth, you're not going to become a fanatic. Right? So Rav Aron was saying there's a benefit in studying Hamlet.
Well, they say Shakespeare was high.
Right, I've heard that one too.
There's literature and everything.
But he was, Rav Aron really held that there was a value in literature. The fact is, but Rav Aron also felt like, he needed a break from his learning, and he got his break in a certain way from every human being needs a certain break for psychological health, and Rav Aron got it from baseball. The fact is that what every person needs is personal. What's involved is personal, so on and so forth. But the fact is when it comes down to is first recognizing that you are a decision maker, that you are an individual who has to make decisions about your life, and those decisions begin with choosing. One of those important early decisions is choosing a Rav. What does that mean? Choosing a guide in Torah to tell you, to assist you or teach you about the decision-making process. It's very different. When you were talking before about learning from books and so forth and so forth, yeah, you can look up the Sefer and you have lots of books nowadays that we can use for psak and so forth and so forth. The point is that the Rav is going to tell you, like your Rav is going to tell you how to use those books, how to work with those books, and what to do if you find a psak that you think you have issues with.
You don't find that though, really. Like you find people have this question. It's like a lot of the time if they do it on a regular basis, it's like just a basic kind of question you can look up. But then they just like getting this answer. But the Rav is not going to show them how to use it or why.
The fact of the matter is, because the fact is,
there's never a depth like that.
You're right, because the fact is that what we've lost is the role. That's why I said there's two issues to Lecha Rav. One is who's going to paskin for you. Okay, you have to know who can stand in for psak. It's like who's going to be your shliach in psak. Who's the person who's going to make the decision with you? So you want to know who you're going to rely upon, because what you're saying is I can't make the decision. There's issues about it, but I can't make a decision because I may not have all the knowledge to make that decision. So who am I going to rely upon to make that decision for me? Because it's going to be for me. That's the psak of Lecha Rav. But the teacher of Lecha Rav is who, and that's why I formulated the way I did. Who is going to be my guide in learning? That does not mean simply giving you information. It's not just a transmission of information. It's a transmission of how you deal with the information. It's the way you process the information, and therefore it's an aspect of guidance. So that depends a lot to do on your understanding of the decision-making character of what you are doing. And that perhaps is at the core of a lot of what we've been talking about in terms of educational systems and so forth. Sometimes in education seems to be I'm trying to transfer knowledge to you, and my way of testing you whether I've been successful is by a test that just basically says, did you get the knowledge that I'm transmitting to you? But the fact is that really misses a lot of what Jewish education is about. Because Jewish education is based upon the fact that you are a decision maker. And therefore what you have to learn is you have to be guided in how to make decisions within Torah. And the first decision you're making is choosing your teacher. And that will come about from understanding that the teacher is a model of the kind of Judaism that you want to emulate. It's a very different process. Okay, because the fact is, now the truth is that you may choose a teacher who basically has, let's say, a derech that does not that does not foster decision making. Okay, it might be, but you've made the decision that you want to go into a certain method of Torah that has a certain viewpoint that does not foster your decision making. Okay, that's your decision, but that's still your decision. And once you understand it's your decision, you're also going to be much more tolerant of variant opinions, because you're going to understand. What usually gets me upset for a lot of times, like I said this before in many situations. What usually gets me upset is not the way that someone chooses a Rav. It's the way someone deals with not knowing any other opinion. Like, for example, I wrote an article about this, about why I have difficulty with Mashiachas. Why do I have difficulty with Mashiachas? Okay, so most people say, well, they argue that the Rebbe is Mashiach, and therefore there's problems with saying that he's Mashiach because you don't have a dead Mashiach, and then the other tying it back that from Gemara Pesachim that says the Mashiach can come from the dead, and so forth and so forth. It says that's all nice. Okay, that's all that, and yes, it's really problematic, that we have this attitude of Mashiach that is in some kind of limbo and not really dead, right? Whatever the Mashiachs believe. But what really bothers me about Mashiachs is the fact that a person can basically say, right, that this is my opinion without recognizing a certain amount of humility. You've made a decision that this person's Mashiach? Who are you to make that decision?
For most of them, they aren't making the decision.
No.
People came before them.
Or it's because they're saying this is what the Rebbe said. The point of the matter is, wait a second. Wait a second. Who are you to have this opinion? Let me ask you something. Okay, there are a lot of people who disagree. A lot of people disagree. How do you feel about that? They're all wrong. Who are you to say they're all wrong?
Well, who are Jews to say that all the other religions are wrong?
So the fact of the matter is, how do you say that? How are Jews supposed to say that? Mm-hmm. Okay, so the fact is, a few words for me is Lefi Anias Daiti, according to my perception of thought, according to my understanding. It's a certain amount of humility.
Yeah, but most people don't do that, even not Mashiachs.
By the way, you're absolutely right. But the fact is, when people start yelling it in public, and therefore, what gets me, I'll tell you.
I'm just playing their advocate because I want to see how this plays out. What
gets me in that situation then is that you show respect for variant opinions. I was in a situation once where there were situations where if you feel that it's significant to say Yechi Eloneinu, that's up to you. In your place, you say it. You go into someone else's place, and the other person says we don't say it. Show respect to them and not say it. But no, because I'm right, you're wrong. The fact is I can go into a situation where I could sit there like I'll tell people, you go in terms of psak. In this place, they wear a hat for davening, so really you should wear a hat for, okay, so you should wear a hat for davening. Why? Because that's what they do in this place. Oh, you don't wear a hat for davening, so in this place, these bedafka don't wear a hat for davening, so maybe you should follow the minhag of this place. So once you understand, especially if all these viewpoints are basically supported halachically, that doesn't mean you can always change your minhag or whatever. But the point is, if you understand that there's variant opinions, and I'm following this because That's the way I see the facts. It's my decision, but I also recognize I have some humility that someone else may come to a different decision. So you're going to have a lot more ability to be tolerant. You have a lot more understanding of different viewpoints. You're going to be able to converse and so forth and so forth. But if you are walking around saying, "This is the law, I'm right," and you're all wrong, which means you're all idiots because I have some kind of, knowledge because I'm right. And the fact is that and the only reason I pick on the Mashiachas is because they're public about it. It's like they want to make the statement, okay? And the truth is when I see it, I sit there and say, okay, something. It's like, okay, you're trying to really yell out that you're believing this. Okay, maybe a little bit of humility. It's like this is your belief, this is your viewpoint, but even do you understand how you even got to that decision? Do you understand the issues involved? Okay? The fact is that usually a lot of people, and you're right, it's not just Mashiachas. A lot of people this is absolutely true. From what? It's like if you it's like, and it's remarkable how people downplay it. I said this last week. Okay, who in Yerushalayim in 1930 was generally perceived to be, there was, for sure,
seems like the more one is connected to that doctrine, as much as they can be, they are just
right. But the fact is
that blinding everything else.
And the fact is they challenge the fact that, and therefore they almost take on the Hasidic viewpoint that I have some kind of Ruach HaKodesh to know the absolute truth, and they don't see themselves as real decision makers. When you see yourself as a real decision maker, you hold that this person's a godel. How do you came to that conclusion? Well, it's obvious he's a godel. No. How did you come to that conclusion? And how do you know that this other person's not a godel?
It's almost like you also see people in their own world. It's like they're not really in your surrounding. It's kind of like you could see them walk around. It's almost like they're purposely trying to act different, but they've put their mind in a whole other zone.
Right, and the fact is when a statement, like I was going to say that in the 1930s, you go up to someone and this is something that would freak out a lot of people, but generally, it seems to be like let me put it another way, and like in 1930 in Eretz Yisrael, perhaps the one who was perceived to be the biggest godel in Yerushalayim was Rav Kook. I think they still disagreed with him, but in terms of Rav Kook, I know that I spoke to people about the Satmar Rav in the 1970s. Okay, and I spoke to people who said, it was pretty well accepted that before he was Nifter, that the Satmar Rav was the Gadol Hador. No doubt about that. Okay, in terms of lumdus and so forth and so forth. People still disagreed with him, but in terms of being number, and I know I've spoken to someone and this person said before he was there, he said Rav Shach he believed was a Gadol Hador. But it doesn't mean he totally accepted everything Rav Shach said. The point is that the fact is once you understand that these individuals are decision makers and there's other viewpoints and the fact is you begin to understand different perspectives. Begin to understand that okay, that's their viewpoint and my viewpoint. But what happens to you is you begin to understand you're a decision maker. Now when you understand you're a decision maker, that doesn't mean I can now paskin every shalah because I'm a decision maker. No, you're a decision maker, but you have to have information, you have to have the ability, and so forth and so forth. Therefore, the educational process of a Lecha Rav is to teach you, to guide you how to grow as this decision maker. But understand that with the very concept of Lecha Rav, you are a decision maker, and that's a very significant concept. Because it's no longer that I'm just trying to indoctrinate you. I am now trying to educate you in the full sense of education. I'm trying to guide you. I'm trying to develop your decision-making process. And in that process, you also recognize, and really good decisions recognize when they're competent decision makers and when they're not competent decision makers. When they have the information to make decisions and when they don't have the information to make decisions. Right? The fact is that it would be so different if people understood that my educational process has to be the education to be a decision maker. Building a fact that I am a decision maker. Now I understand I made a decision, which was not based upon information, which was the original decision of who I'm going to study from, and that reflects something about me. It reflects what I think Torah is about and where I'm going with it. But at the same point in time, I have to know where I'm. I understand that I have to do a lot of work to extend where my decision making should be, and therefore, in between, I have to choose someone who's going to make the decisions for me. Okay, and that's a posek Rav. Okay, because you're in that, but it's all process of understanding the world as a place where you're called upon to make decisions. It's a very different perspective. Okay? Okay. I just wanted, but that's really from the two concepts of Seder HaRav. Okay?
Because I've experienced that when I had different shaylas that I would ask different Ravs, and it wasn't that I didn't like certain answer. I liked every answer, but just only one of them really spoke to me. So
right.
Yeah, I connected.
But the point is really what should speak to you is not the decision, but the individual. No, actually, the one making the decision. In other words, what you want is not to make a decision that I like that psak. What you want to say is I like this person's I like
Is this building on
or how this person conducts themselves, what this person presents as Torah Judaism.
Yeah, but then there's other Ravs that I ask for in daily process what to do about how to act in certain situations. But then other Ravs I look for answers for questions.
Right.
And they all give me good answers, but I won't stop till I get something that I agree with.
But I think what you really want to do, you're right. You need to have that connection to it. But I think what you want to do is find a person who can do that consistently. That's what you're looking with a Seder HaRav.
But there's also an idea of Rabbi Business Banner keeps on saying.
What?
Rabbi Business Banner keeps on saying over and over again that you'll have people who choose a Rav, but the second they say something they don't like, they're gone. So there's like a consistency.
There's a point, and the point is that just because you choose a Rav one day doesn't mean you're bound for the rest of your life. There could be a point in time where that doesn't mean that anytime the Rav makes a decision you don't like, oh, I'm going to switch to someone else. But there are situations where when a Rav makes a decision that you really find problematic in terms of your whole perspective on Judaism, then it may be time to search for a new Rav.
Or you have a Rav who assumes he's your Rav but isn't.
And so that's a problem also. I mean, the fact is, the Seder HaRav doesn't necessarily mean you're making that decision. Unless it becomes a Rebbe Muchak, which teaches you most of your Torah, then that becomes an imposition upon you. But the fact is
that possible nowadays?
Not really. But the fact is the Seder HaRav does give you a chance to say, listen, I think that my perspective today has to lead me to a different conclusion of who I want as my Rav. Right? And that's also acceptable.
Cool.
Right?
So is it so my understanding of Rav is you choose your Rav and then who he considers is the godel for him is...
Well, by definition, it's not the fact that in every decision he makes you have to follow. I mean, in psak, it's called a Rav who's giving you psak and so forth and so forth. But the fact is that who he accepts as a godel is going to have influence and is telling you something about his perspective and his viewpoint. But a lot of times, also, what does he mean by godel?
Also, nowadays, has there ever been a time when all the big players of whoever may be considered a godel or possibly is considered godel or has the ability to be considered godel, all coming together to make a psak without targeting a specific group?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
Like when they make a psak, are they targeted? Are they saying all cholesterol do this?
The Sanhedrin used to do that.
I know.
We don't have a situation in the Gullus when all the gedolim got together. See, one of the things that happens when you talk in terms of gedolim is that there are certain groups who the definition of a godel begins and ends with people within their group.
Right.
Okay? And
there's obviously a leaning towards that person. Yes, they'll say that's a godel, but like this godel, they're leaning because it's in their group. It's
yeah. But that person over there is not a godel. He's not really a godel.
Right.
You know, how do you know? Well, because he's not. No, people don't talk to him about being a godel. How do you know?
What if you actually got together with some of the top head honchos and you're like, that guy?
One of the problems in our world today is people don't get together and talk over. I mean, that's a problem in terms of...
So how would you know? How would anyone know?
That's a problem in our world today. The fact is the separation between the groups in learning in our world today is a real problem.
What about those who aren't so connected to the whole concept of a godel and like the effect it can have on, like some people aren't at that level, or I don't know, or aren't within that world.
They don't have a right.
That it affects them that way.
It's the fact is that understanding one of the problems in the world today is in terms of decision making and an issue of autonomy. The fact is that there are a lot of people who feel that who value autonomy and making and their right to make decisions. And the fact is that at a certain level, Aseh Lecha Rav is an aspect of autonomy because you have to make the decision. The point is, though, is that what Judaism also values is the necessity of knowledge in making that decision. And the question is a lot of people when they make decisions, are they really making it based upon knowledge, or are they making it based upon this is what I like?
Right.
Right.
So how would you distinguish that?
Well, it usually comes about with when you consult with Rabbanim, because the Rav becomes an expert. It's like there's people who make medical decisions who think they know what they're talking about. You know, like, and how many years did you spend in medical school? Well, you know, I read an article in this magazine. You know, it's like the whole thing with, let's say, vaccines. I mean, people get upset about this. You know, like there's this woman who was just arrested because she kidnapped her kid because she didn't want the kid to have that vaccine. Finally, they found the kid and they put the kid in it because vaccines are wrong. Based on what? Well, I just believe they're wrong, and I have my reasons. And she read, you know, this article and so forth and so forth. Most doctors argue vaccines have value. And you know, so the point is that you know, there's a knowledge base in making that decision. Okay? Now, is there differences and disagreements among doctors about certain issues? Yes. So then you can choose your doctor, but the point is it's still knowledge based, and then how do you choose that doctor? So do you have enough medical knowledge to know which doctor is right? So you have some way of choosing that doctor.
But have you ever had like the head of the medical board of your specific physician make a statement that then will apply to all the physicians and all their patients?
I don't know, because you don't have the head. You don't have the same type of
leadership
well, you don't have the same type of perception that there are more knowledgeable doctors and more knowledgeable doctors.
No, I'm saying, okay, like for example, I mean, like you, for an example, right? You have, I'm sure you have your chain.
Yes. And
if the top of the chain made a verdict, would you then be obligated to follow it? And then subsequently, your students be obligated to follow it?
No. because the fact is that I don't have the same type of system. The only time we had that system was with the Sanhedrin.
Yeah.
Sanhedrin, you had an obligation to follow. The other Bati didn't have an obligation to follow Sanhedrin. A Rav has a system of up the ladder and so forth and so forth. If he asks the Shiloh point blank, then maybe he has an obligation to the thing, but it's all a matter of the information you gain in. And the truth is that it's not such a black and white up the ladder. It's like, like for me, for example, the voices that play a major role in my thinking would be Ramosha and Rabbi Yoshe Ber. Well, clearly they Ramosha says something, I take it very seriously. Does that mean that I totally 100% follow every psak of Ramosha? No. No. Do I take what he says seriously? Yes. I take everything he says seriously? Yes. But does it mean that I follow the psak? Because there's other situations.
You can pick and choose?
It's not picking and choosing. That's it. It's a matter that I'm a certain level of decision maker, and therefore it's all information that I have to weigh within my perspective.
So the only real binding is either your perception or the person you choose's perception of what's right and wrong.
What you're getting to is what really is the binding nature of authority. So the point is the binding nature of authority is a matter of that's part of the question, the binding nature of authority, in terms of it doesn't have the absolute power of authority. It's a matter that it's information I take in making a decision. Now, even when you think in terms of godel, okay, it's not that the godel. What authority does godel have? The authority of the godel is that he can make better decisions than me. Okay, so the point is that, especially if there's different opinions among gedolim, so you sort of say, listen, this viewpoint, I understand a little bit better than that viewpoint. You know, and there's, but the fact is that it becomes very much, it's very much of the level of the authority voice in terms of your knowledge and your ability to make decisions. Okay, so yeah, and then if you ask a Rabbi Shiloh, then you're bound by it. But the point is that, what is the power of the authority?
What if you decide not to take on a rabbi? Then what's that decision considered?
So the fact is that's problematic in the sense that who's guiding you in the process of how to learn? Okay, who's guiding you in this process?
Google. You're supposed to consult with the Rav. Yeah, Google. You're supposed to consult with the Rav about every daily decision.
No, I know. I don't think that's true. I think the fact of the matter is you should have a Rav that teaches you how to make decisions.
But do you have to have like a pull to do this, or it just should be like?
I think it should come with. It comes with a certain understanding of what Judaism is about. Once you understand that Judaism is about you being a decision maker and having to go through life making decisions, then you begin to understand what Limud Torah really is about. Limud Torah is not some dogmatic system that says do this, don't do this, do this, don't do this. Limud Torah is a system of thought that Kosh Baruch Hu wishes you to consult in making decisions about your life. Okay? Okay, so the laws of kashrus is not, you can't eat pork. The laws of kashrus is, here are a variety of considerations, including don't eat the meat of a pig, that should guide you in your dietary decisions, right? And therefore, as you get more and more involved in those decisions, you begin to understand, okay, so how do I make the decision of what to eat, what not to eat? So I'm supposed to apply certain information in making that decision. The question is that if you see the decision making, you understand what the force is of the community you've been born into as a factor in halachic decision making.
Can you argue with it?
Can you deal with it? Yes. The fact of the matter is that, and then there's a process of how you deal with it.
So I'm an Ashkenazi, and I think that Ashkenazim got it wrong with kidneys. And I think we should, and I learned it, and I.
The fact of the matter is how much have you studied the concept of Minhag Yisrael and its power as halachic force,
Right.
even if the Minhag is stupid. So the fact that the fact that Ashkenazim got it wrong may no longer be a factor. So the fact is what you're telling me is, have you really investigated what the force power is?
So let's say you were to do it. How would you do it properly? Is it possible?
In terms of matering kidneys, most likely not. But the fact is that I mean, maybe if you accept all the other Sephardi minhagim, you might be able to switch.
But why then would you have to accept those Sephardi minhagim if you look into it and then like why is it like a group if this Rav is not blanket and this
because it's a different power of the force.
Right.
What if you don't like the whole idea of just because this is the majority are doing it now here this way?
So that gets it. These are all questions in terms of investigating the topics. Whereas, what is the power of Minhag Yisrael? How does Minhag Yisrael work?
There are some things that
how does Minhag Avosenu apply? Right. Most people think Minhag Avosenu is family. It's not family. Minhag Avosenu is communal, right? The fact is that you know it's very much of a situation, and yes, there may be certain things that have force of halacha that you don't like. Good. So guess what? Some people don't like other halachas. but the fact is that the way you're phrasing it already indicates that you see what the power of the force is, and then it's a matter of understanding its position in the decision-making process. So what you're talking about is what a lot of learning is about.
So at some point we should have the breakdown, if it's possible, the chart of
that specific
Torah Shabbat Pat, Sanhedrin.
The fact is that the way you're even discussing it, the way you're even presenting it, it's not necessarily significant.
But okay, let's say you're a Jew, and so then you have things. So
your starting point as a Jew is a Lecha Rav. Find someone that's Paskin's
okay, so you find the Lecha Rav, but let's say you need the Rav part, and then you have the Masorah part, and then you have.
And from that point, okay, so one of the big issues that begins with the Rav is whenever you have a Shaila, okay, and you ask the Rav the Shaila, say, okay, now explain to me how you got to that psak. Now you can start dealing with the issues, because then you can start understanding what the value considerations are in that psak. Okay, in other words, when you like Ramosha wrote in the thing, he wrote down Truvas. What did he say? He says, here's my argument.
Right.
Okay? And you should learn the argument.
I heard that Rav Moshe's argument for Chol Stam was only in poor cities, because that's what he says specifically.
Yeah, and who told you that?
No.
And did that person take out Rav Moshe and read it himself to you?
Apparently.
He read it to you?
No, he read it inside before.
And he showed you what his argument was?
Like in the text,
apparently in the text, he was quoting it.
Show it to you that way.
So what was what was Moshe's basic argument? See, the fact is what you're dealing with is that there's Ramosha said, for example, that so he was matir a almana not to cover her hair. So if you walk around and say, "Oh, Ramosha says it's okay for an almana not to cover her hair," okay, that's not what Moshe said. Moshe said this almana needed a job. I think it was an almana. She had no other income for her family. So Moshe then gave the argument of why that she didn't have to cover her hair. Why? because the obligation for a mama to cover her hair is of a nature that for financial necessity, that obligation can fall off. However, for another married woman, her obligation to cover her hair, okay, is of a different nature, that it would not fall off because of the need of parnasa. So the point is, what do you have to do with the No, that's nothing to do with chalav. I'm just I know, but I'm trying to give you an example where see, with chalav stam and the whole Rosh Moshe's real psak. Rosh's real psak is that what you call chalav stam is really chalav Yisrael. That's his real psak. Why? Because what's chalav Yisrael? Chalav Yisrael is ensuring that the milk is kosher.
Really learn inside next
What? You want to learn that from Moshe? Okay, I'll see if I can find and learn it inside. Maybe we'll do that. That may be a good example.
We do also like why we go by the whole thing of majority of a group. That's what we go by.
You guys, let's deal with situations. Or let's deal. What you're raising is what I've opened up to you is the fact that I'm understanding this decision making. What I've done is that a lot of people basically come back and basically say, here's the answer I want you to accept, so I'm going to present the answer in such a way that you'll see it as the only answer.
Right.
Okay? And what I'm doing is I'm trying to show you the answer is a result of thought and different viewpoints and so forth, and there's a different, and that's why there's in other words, what's significant is not Ramosha's conclusion, because the truth is Ramosha does limit his psak in a certain way, but you have to understand what his thinking is. It's not just, oh, you should only do this. Based on what? It's a fact that you can derive out of it all the various considerations and concerns that he has, that he then balances in coming to a conclusion. So when you tell me Ramosha said that the psak only applies in a city where a poor city where you can't get the chalav Yisrael, based on what? What does the psak on what chalav Yisrael is mutter have to do with unless you show me the principles involved? Now the principle Ramosha may have is there was a principle why he said only applied in this city.
Wasn't that the challenge too? But was that the whole challenge?
That's what he gets into. But the point is that if you understand his thinking and his analysis, you see the breakdown of his different perspectives. So then you can get down to this idea, saying, this idea, I see where he gets this idea I'm not so, this argument for this, I'm not so in agreement with, and so forth. So there's different perspectives.
So this center you can jump on saying like, this is halacha.
The fact is, no. What you see, you're thinking too much in black and white. I'm sitting there and saying the best thing you can do is get the ideas while you only drink chalav Yisrael. If you can sit there and say, gee, I'll only drink chalav, the person says, I'm only going to be makmur in this, but I want to understand all the variant ideas, and I'm going to sit there and throw out all the arguments, okay? Not because I'm interested in the conclusion, I'm interested in the ideas. Then you can start beginning to understand Torah. See, that's really what's good. You're focusing so much on the conclusion that you're missing the underlying ideas.
So maybe next class let's look at some ideas.
Okay, so let's try. So let me try and get Ramosha's psak on
maybe it's from Rabbanan, so we can kind of see the variety of Torah. And
the fact is that you can see. Okay, let's try and look at that psak.